Have you ever felt like you always need to explain yourself over and over? Do you get anxious when it's time to share how you really feel? Maybe you've even caught yourself talking nonstop, as if you just can't stop the words from pouring out. If this sounds familiar, always justifying your feelings, worrying about how to express your needs, or rambling without control, take a moment to pause. These behaviors might be signs of something deeper, something rooted in your childhood. They could be the quiet echoes of a younger you who felt ignored or unheard. As adults, we often repeat patterns we learned when we were young. If you grew up in a home where your voice wasn't truly listened to, where you were talked over, dismissed, or made to feel like your feelings didn't matter, you might have developed certain unconscious habits to protect yourself. Back then, they helped you survive. But now those same habits can keep you from truly connecting with others. You might crave closeness, yet find yourself feeling alone or misunderstood again and again. But here's the good news: there's nothing wrong with you. These patterns were learned, and anything learned can be unlearned. The first step is awareness. When we gently shine a light on these hidden habits, we begin a journey of healing and find healthier ways to communicate. I invite you to explore this with me. Some parts may stir old memories or emotions, but every insight is a step toward growth. If this resonates with you and you feel ready to change, let me know in the comments by writing, "I'm ready. Stay with me through this video." Sometimes a single realization can transform the way you see yourself and your relationships forever. Now let's reflect together on the signs and habits we're about to explore. What are the signs of an adult who wasn't truly heard as a child? Let's look at them one by one. As we do, you might see parts of yourself or someone close to you, and that recognition can be the very first step toward change. Sign 1, feeling overwhelmed when expressing emotions and needs. The first sign is feeling overwhelmed whenever you need to express your feelings or needs. In those important moments, when you try to speak up, you might notice your body suddenly go into high alert. Your heart starts pounding, your palms get sweaty, your throat feels dry. Maybe your mind goes blank, or you feel a sudden wave of panic. It can feel as if simply speaking up triggers a primal fight or flight response inside you. One minute you intend to calmly share something important. The next minute your body acts like you're in danger. Your chest tightens, you tremble, or you're on the verge of tears or an outburst. You might wonder, why am I freaking out about something as simple as telling my friend I felt hurt or asking my partner for help? But this intense reaction isn't random. It often has deep roots. Looking back, this pattern makes sense. Maybe as a child, whenever you expressed emotions or needs, you were dismissed or ridiculed. You might have heard things like, "Stop being so dramatic," or "Quit whining. It's not a big deal." You got the message that your feelings were too much or not welcome. I remember a man in his 30s who would physically shake whenever he needed to talk about his feelings with his wife. As a boy, his father would laugh at him and call him too dramatic whenever he cried. Over time, he learned that showing emotions only led to shame and pain. Even though his adult mind knew his wife was kind and willing to listen, his body still reacted with fear every time he tried to open up. Our minds might forget specific childhood moments, but our bodies remember. When you were judged or ignored as a child, you learned deep down that being open wasn't safe. So now, as an adult, when you try to speak up, That old alarm bell rings. You might feel overwhelming anxiety go numb, or react with anger as a shield. Knowing this can be powerful. It means there's nothing wrong with you if you feel terrified to voice your needs. It's simply a part of you, a younger self, trying to protect you from old hurt. Next time you feel that wave of panic, take a slow breath. Gently remind yourself, I am safe now. It's okay to speak. You can even say aloud, this is hard for me to say, to help break the ice. Over time, as you practice and receive kind responses from those who truly care, your nervous system will learn that expressing emotions can be safe. It's like telling that hurt child within you, now there are people who will listen. You do deserve to be heard. And now let's move on to the next sign, something many people do without even realizing it, the urge to over-explain. Sign 2, the urge to over-explain yourself. Do you ever find yourself rushing to justify everything you say or do? You might notice that whenever you share an opinion or make a request, you immediately add extra explanations and details as if you need to prove that your feelings are valid. Deep down, you hope that if you give enough context, the other person will understand, agree, or at least not get upset. It's like you don't trust a simple statement to stand on its own. You feel it needs to be supported by a mountain of words. Why does this happen? It often starts with a fear of being misunderstood or rejected. If you grew up in an environment where your feelings or choices were always questioned, where you heard things like, why would you feel that way? Or you better have a good reason for that. You might have learned that just stating your needs wasn't enough. You had to defend them. Over time, you started to believe that love or approval depended on making the perfect case for yourself. So now, when you worry someone might disagree or be upset, you try to cover every angle to avoid rejection. But this habit often backfires. Imagine how it feels when someone keeps over-explaining to you. It can seem like they don't trust you to understand or that they expect you to judge them. One friend told me, when my partner goes on and on explaining why he did something, I start to feel nervous, like he expects me to be angry, even when I'm not. The more you explain, the more the other person can feel pressured or even guilty, as if they have to constantly reassure you. They might tune out because your core message gets lost in all the extra words. I remember working with a young woman who would over-explain everything. If she needed to cancel plans, she wouldn't simply say, I'm sorry I can't make it tonight. Instead, she'd send a long text listing her workload, her lack of sleep, how much she valued her friend's time, and how bad she felt, almost like writing an essay. In therapy, she realized she was terrified her friends would think she was lazy or didn't care if she didn't explain fully. This fear started in childhood, where her parents would accuse her of being irresponsible unless she gave a good enough excuse. She learned, explain everything or risk being rejected. If this sounds familiar, remember, you don't owe anyone a detailed defense of your feelings or choices, especially not the people who truly care about you. Your words are already enough. Practice stating something simply, and then resist the urge to keep going. Notice the anxiety that comes up when you stop sooner than usual. That's just the old fear talking. You can remind yourself, the people who matter will understand me. I am enough, even without defending myself. As you practice, you'll see that nothing terrible happens when you don't over-explain. You'll start to feel more calm and confident. Clarity often comes from simplicity. By saying what you mean, with fewer words, your message has more power. You also give the other person space to respond or ask questions, turning the moment into a true two-way conversation rather than a one-sided monologue. You move from seeking endless validation to building real connection calmly and with trust. And now let's explore the next sign, which often shows up in those quiet moments during a conversation: the need to fill every silence. Sign 3, filling every silence in conversation. Imagine you're talking with someone and suddenly there's a pause. No one speaks for a few seconds. How does that make you feel? Do you get anxious or uncomfortable? Do you scramble to think of something, anything to fill the silence? The third sign is just that, an urge to fill every quiet moment. If you grew up feeling unheard, you might now find silence almost unbearable. Instead of a comfortable pause, it feels heavy, as if something is wrong. So you rush in to chase it away with words. You might change the topic abruptly, share random thoughts, or even apologize for the quiet. It's a reflex. The moment silence falls, you instinctively try to make it disappear. Why does this happen? For many, it goes back to childhood experiences, especially the silent treatment. Maybe when you were young, a parent or caregiver would respond to your mistakes, not by yelling, but by going completely silent, ignoring you for hours or even days. That silence can be terrifying. Being ignored feels even worse than being scolded, because it makes you feel invisible and abandoned. You learn to see silence as dangerous as the sound of rejection and lost connection. Now, as an adult, you might intellectually know that a pause in conversation is normal, but that younger part of you doesn't know it. To that child inside, even a few seconds of quiet can feel like the start of that old, icy distance. So you fill every gap as if you're desperately pumping air into a balloon that might deflate if you stop. You might crack a joke, overshare something personal, or just blurt out filler words to keep the connection alive. On one hand, you might be seen as lively or entertaining, but on the other hand, it can be exhausting for you and for the people around you. Conversations can start to feel forced, and the other person might sense your discomfort. They may feel pressured to keep responding, which can actually push them away. Ironically, the fear of disconnection you're trying to avoid can become more likely. I remember working with a young man named James. During our sessions, if I paused to think, he would instantly start talking fast or often about unrelated things. We discovered this traced back to his childhood dinners. If he upset his father, his dad would go silent, an icy silence that made James feel like he didn't exist. As an adult, he became the funny, constant talker to keep people from leaving him alone in that silence. To break this pattern, you need to build a new relationship with quiet moments. At first, it may feel awkward, like sitting in an empty room, but you can start small. The next time you're with someone you trust and there's a lull, try not to rush in. Take a slow breath and simply notice the silence. You might realize the other person also has something to say, and your quietness gives them space to find their words. Or maybe you both take a peaceful moment together, and that's perfectly okay. You can remind yourself, silence doesn't mean I'm being ignored. It's just a natural pause. I am here, and they are here with me. With practice, you'll start to feel more comfortable. You'll discover that silence can actually be a sign of trust and ease, a moment where no one needs to perform or prove anything. When you speak again, your words will come from a calmer, more genuine place rather than from panic. This makes your conversations feel more balanced and real. You'll feel truly connected rather than just filling space out of fear. After exploring these first 3 signs, overwhelm when expressing yourself, the urge to over-explain, and the fear of silence, let's move on to other hidden habits that can shape how we share our stories and emotions. Sign 4, steering. Every conversation back to yourself. The 4th sign is a bit tricky because on the surface, it looks like normal sharing. But it can actually point to an unmet need inside. Do you notice that when someone tells you about their problem or experience, you almost immediately think of your own story? And as soon as there's a tiny gap, you jump in with, "I know exactly what you mean. The same thing happened to me." And then you continue with your experience. This habit turns every conversation back to you. Whatever the topic, work, stress, health issues, or even happy events, you feel compelled to share your version. Your intention might truly be to empathize, to show you understand. And yes, sharing similar experiences can help us bond, but when it becomes automatic, when you do it with almost everyone and all the time, it can make the other person feel unseen. They might feel that their story was just a launch pad for you to talk about yourself. If you grew up feeling ignored or had to fight to be heard, this behavior often runs deep. Maybe as a child, every time you tried to share, a parent interrupted, or your siblings talked over you. Perhaps no one showed much interest, or they quickly changed the subject. In those moments, some children give up and stay silent, but others keep trying. They think, maybe if I say something really important or relatable, they'll finally listen. As an adult, this can turn into the habit of hijacking the conversation, not because you're selfish, but because you're still that child longing to be heard. It's completely human to want to share your experiences, especially when you truly relate. The key difference here is the feeling that you must share, that if you don't jump in now, you'll lose your chance. It's like a reflex born from scarcity. Opportunities to be heard are rare. Grab them now. Sadly, this often has the opposite effect. Instead of feeling more heard, you might notice friends or loved ones pull away or stop opening up. They might say, "I feel like you don't really listen to me," or they simply share less with you. And that can hurt deeply, especially because you know what it feels like to be unheard, and you never wanted to make someone else feel that way. How can you shift this pattern? It starts with mindful listening. The next time someone shares something personal, take a slow breath and truly listen. Notice the urge to add your own story. Just observe it without acting on it. You might gently remind yourself, their story first. I can share mine later. Offer empathy in a way that keeps the focus on them. Say things like, "That sounds really tough. What was that like for you?" Or, "I'm so happy for you. Tell me more." This doesn't mean you should never share your own experiences. It just means choosing the right timing. Let the other person fully express themselves first. Often, once they feel heard, they'll naturally ask you, "Have you ever experienced something like that?" And that's your invitation. And if they don't ask, that's okay too. You might share your story another time, or you might realize that in deeply listening, you receive something precious, true connection. Over time, people will trust you more and value your presence because they feel you're really there with them. Ironically, By listening more, you'll actually feel more heard yourself. The exchanges become more genuine and balanced. You're healing your old wound by making sure others don't feel unseen, and in doing so, you create a space where true listening is shared and returned. Next, we'll look at a related behavior, but one that shows up even more intensely: oversharing your emotions and stories, often with the wrong people or at the wrong time. Let's explore emotional dumping. Sign 5. Emotional dumping on others. Do you ever find yourself sharing very personal, deep emotions or traumas with people you just met? Maybe you've caught yourself spilling your life story, including the most painful parts to a new coworker, an acquaintance at a party, or even on social media. This is called emotional dumping. It means sharing too much too soon, and often with someone who hasn't earned that level of trust yet. The word dumping sounds harsh, but it captures the feeling of unloading a heavy emotional burden onto someone without their consent or preparation. Why would someone do this? It might seem strange. You'd think we would guard our deepest feelings. But if you grew up feeling that no one really saw your pain or acknowledged your needs, you may carry a tension inside that's just waiting to burst out. Imagine being starved for validation your whole life. Then when you finally see a possible source of empathy, you rush to feast. You feel an urgent need to be heard and to have someone say, "Wow, I see how much you've been through. I'm here for you." As a child, maybe when you were upset, the adults brushed you off with, "You're fine, stop crying," or "You're upsetting me, just go to your room." So you learned to swallow your pain and handle it alone. But that pain didn't disappear. It just sat inside, waiting for someone to finally listen. As an adult, when someone asks, "How are you?" your emotional backpack bursts open. All the contents spill out because deep down, the child inside is thinking, "Maybe this person will finally hear me." The problem is not everyone is prepared or able to handle such raw vulnerability, especially all at once. When you dump emotions on someone who isn't ready, they might feel overwhelmed and pull away, reenacting the very rejection you fear. They might judge you for oversharing or listen politely, but avoid deeper contact afterward because they sense being around you might become too heavy. I've seen this with people who shared traumatic stories with near strangers, only to feel even more alone when those people stepped back. One woman I worked with shared details of her painful divorce and childhood abuse with anyone who showed kindness. She hoped for comfort and understanding, but was often met with awkward silence or a quick change of subject, leaving her feeling even more unheard. So how do we change this pattern? The answer isn't to bottle everything up again. That's what created the pressure in the first place. Instead, it's about choosing safe spaces and pacing yourself. Think of sharing like opening a faucet rather than breaking a dam. Start by identifying who in your life is truly safe and trustworthy: a close friend, a family member, or a therapist. With those people, share what's on your heart, but still pay attention to pacing. You might say, "Something's been weighing on me. Do you have space for me to share?" This gives them a chance to prepare or even say no if they aren't in the right headspace. And remember, a no doesn't mean you're unworthy. Everyone has their limits. With people who aren't close or new acquaintances, practice holding back a bit. You can still be genuine and say, "Yeah, I've been going through a hard time," without going into deep details right away. Notice the fear that says, "If I don't tell them everything, they won't really see me." You can reassure that part of you. I see you, I hear you, but we don't need to tell everyone our pain to prove it's real. Sometimes writing in a journal or talking to a therapist can be a better outlet than opening up to someone you barely know. Over time, as you build inner validation, you won't feel as desperate for external approval. You'll start to feel that your experiences are real and valid, even if only you know them. Then when you choose to share with others, it will be intentional, measured, mutual, and more likely to lead to real understanding and support. Now let's look at another pattern that often goes unnoticed when you feel you have to dominate the conversation just to be heard. Sign 6, dominating conversations and interrupting. Think about the last time you were in a group discussion or even a one-on-one chat. Did you feel an almost uncontrollable urge to take charge of the conversation? Maybe you spoke louder and faster than others, jumped in before they finished, or quickly corrected them to assert your point. You might even notice a kind of defensiveness, as if you're preparing for a challenge, ready for a debate even when no one is debating you. This is the 6th sign, the habit of dominating conversations. It can show up as talking over people, interrupting, often or forcefully, pushing your point across. On the surface, this can look like arrogance or insensitivity, and sadly, that's often how others see it. But underneath, there's usually a scared child who believes, if I don't fight to be heard, I'll be ignored. Maybe you grew up in a big family where only the loudest got attention, and softer voices were drowned out. Or maybe you had a parent who was so domineering that everyone else's opinions were dismissed. When you tried to speak up, you were cut off with, "Not now, be quiet," or "I'm talking, don't interrupt." You learned that conversation is a battle only the strongest voice survives. So now, as an adult, you enter discussions like stepping into a boxing ring. It's not a conscious choice. It's a reflex. You believe that if you pause or yield, you'll never get a chance to speak. You barrel through with your opinions, expecting that no one will listen unless you force them to. Ironically, by dominating, you create exactly what you fear people stop listening. They either try to shout over you, leading to conflict, or they give up and withdraw, leaving you talking to an empty room. I remember working with a man named Alan. He would come into sessions talking non-stop, barely giving me a moment to respond. In group therapy, he often cut others off mid-sentence. Over time, people avoided interacting with him. When we explored his past, Alan shared that as the youngest child, his opinions were never taken seriously. Older siblings laughed at him or corrected him, telling him he didn't know what he was talking about. He felt small and voiceless. To cope, he developed an aggressive style to make sure he was never ignored again, but in trying so hard not to feel small, he ended up making others feel small, pushing away the connection he actually wanted. If you recognize some of this in yourself, remember, awareness is the first step. Start by observing your next conversations. Notice if you raise your volume or start forming your response while someone else is still talking. Just take note without judging yourself. Then, as an experiment, practice active listening. Slow your pace. When someone speaks, really listen until they finish. You might tell yourself, "It's okay, I will get my turn. Right now, let me truly hear them." If you catch yourself interrupting, pause and simply say, "Sorry I cut you off. Please continue." Notice the anxiety that bubbles up. The fear that, if I don't assert, I'll be forgotten. Watch what happens. Most often, You'll find that when you give others space, they feel more relaxed and are more willing to listen to you in return. The conversation becomes a dance, not a wrestling match. This shows respect and signals quiet confidence, the confidence that your voice will be heard without having to force it. Over time, this balanced approach transforms relationships. People feel safer and more respected, and you finally experience the true listening and connection you've always needed without pushing anyone away to get it. We've covered so much ground, from overwhelm and silence to oversharing and dominating. Now let's look at the final two signs. These two are interesting because they sit at opposite extremes, but both come from the same wound, not feeling heard. Let's explore them. Sign 7, staying silent and people-pleasing. Fawning. The 7th sign sits at one end of the spectrum, extreme silence and people-pleasing. Instead of fighting to be heard, you stop trying to be heard at all. You might find that you never assert your opinions or needs, especially around others. You automatically defer to what they want. If someone asks where to eat or what to watch, your answer is usually, "Oh, whatever you like, I'm fine with anything." Even if deep down, you have a preference. You avoid sharing your feelings or disagreeing, even when something bothers you. In conflict, you quickly say, "Sorry," just to keep the peace. You might go out of your way to do favors or say yes to every request because the thought of saying no or "actually, I'd rather not" fills you with dread. Psychologists sometimes call this the fawn response. Instead of fight, flight, or freeze, it's about appeasing and keeping others happy to stay safe. If you grew up in a home where voicing your needs didn't lead to anything good, it makes sense that you'd develop this response. Maybe when you shared an opinion, you were ignored as if you didn't exist. Or worse, you were ridiculed. How could you possibly want that? That's stupid, or punished. Don't talk back to me. You learned that asserting yourself led to conflict or anger. So you adapted. You stayed quiet, agreeable, and low maintenance to avoid negative attention. Maybe adults praised you for being so well behaved when you didn't make waves. Inside you concluded, "My feelings only cause trouble. Better to keep them to myself. My role is to make others happy." Carrying this survival strategy into adulthood, you become the person who always accommodates. Your boss asks for extra work. You say yes, even when overwhelmed. Your partner makes a decision that affects you. You go along without protest. A friend hurts you. You smile and pretend it's okay. On the outside, you seem easygoing. But inside, what's the cost? People who fawn often end up with resentment and hurt. Your needs don't disappear. They just get buried. Over time, this can lead to feeling unappreciated, invisible, or even depressed. You've shut down your authentic self to avoid conflict. You might feel lonely in a different way, not because people aren't around, but because they don't truly know you. They only know the compliant version of you. I remember working with a woman named Maria. She realized she hadn't said no to anyone in years. She agreed to every favor, pretended to enjoy activities she disliked, and even laughed at jokes that hurt her feelings. As a child, Maria learned that disagreeing meant being scolded or ignored. She became an expert at reading others' expectations and fulfilling them. It kept her safe then, but in adulthood, it led to burnout and a sense that her life wasn't really her own. She felt like a spectator, always following along instead of truly living. If you see yourself in this, I want you to know your voice and your needs matter. They mattered then, even if your family didn't honor them, and they matter now. Expressing yourself is not useless, even if it felt that way before. You can start small. Practice stating a preference in a low-stakes moment. If a friend asks tea or coffee, and you have a preference, say it. If someone asks for a favor that you truly can't handle, practice saying, "I'm sorry, I can't this time." Notice the anxiety that flares up, the fear that they'll be upset or stop caring about you. In reality, people who truly care will respect your boundaries. And if someone reacts poorly to you simply having a voice, that might be a sign to reevaluate that relationship. Remember, by always yielding, you're not avoiding conflict, you're internalizing it. The conflict still exists, but it happens inside you as self-criticism or stress. By speaking up little by little, you release that pressure. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but as you experience small successes, moments where you say what you feel and the world doesn't end, you start rebuilding trust in yourself. You'll realize you have the right to be here, to have opinions, to be imperfect and human. And paradoxically, when you show your true self, you give others a chance to truly know and even love the real you, a far deeper connection than any peace kept by silence. Now let's explore the other extreme reaction. It may look very different from people-pleasing, but it comes from the same wound, feeling unheard. Sign 8, feeling anxious and lost in group conversations. The 8th and final sign is feeling overwhelmed and anxious in group settings. You might almost freeze up or get lost in your own head when surrounded by a lively discussion. If you find yourself in a group, whether it's a work meeting, a family dinner, or a gathering of friends, and you struggle to jump in, this might resonate with you. You might describe it like this: everyone was talking and I just couldn't find the right moment or the courage to speak. By the time I thought of something, the conversation had already moved on. I felt invisible just listening from the outside. During these moments, your heart might race, your face might flush. Your mind is full of thoughts, witty comments, questions, but something stops you from saying them. You keep hesitating and second-guessing yourself. Is this interesting enough? Will I interrupt? Do they even want to hear me? In the end, you stay quiet, maybe nodding along, while inside you're berating yourself for not speaking up. Later, you might replay the scene and feel frustrated or ashamed. Why can't I just be part of the group? What's wrong with me? This often comes from a lack of confidence in your own voice, which can trace back to childhood. Maybe in your family, whenever people gathered, the adults talked over you. If you tried to share a story or joke, you heard, "Not now, let the adults talk," or "No one noticed at all." You learned that in a group, your voice didn't matter, or that you'd embarrass yourself if you tried to get attention. Some kids in this situation develop a rich inner world, always observing but not participating. That habit can stick into adulthood. Or maybe when you did speak as a child, you were met with laughter, teasing, or criticism. You might have developed a kind of social anxiety even if you're fine one-on-one. In a group, it feels like too many eyes are on you. The attention you crave now feels risky and uncomfortable, like stage fright at a dinner table or in a meeting room. So what can you do if this feels familiar? First, show yourself compassion. You're not failing or broken for finding group interactions hard. It actually shows how much you care about connection and how sensitive you are to social cues. That sensitivity started from wanting to be heard and getting hurt. Now you can start challenging the old belief, "I have nothing valuable to add," or no one wants to hear me. These are not truths, they are wounds speaking. A practical step is to set small, gentle goals. At your next meeting or dinner, challenge yourself to speak just once. It could be agreeing with someone. I think John made a great point about, or asking a question. I'm curious, how did you come up with that idea? The goal is to get comfortable entering the flow of conversation, not to be perfect. Yes, you might interrupt someone by accident. That happens to everyone. Your comment might not land perfectly, and that's okay. The practice itself is progress. If you trust the group, you can even tell a friend or colleague privately that you want to participate more, but find it difficult. A supportive person might help create space for you by saying, I think Sarah had something to add, so giving you that gentle nudge. Before joining a group, remind yourself, I belong here. My voice matters as much as anyone else's. This affirmation can calm your internal panic. Try to reframe what a group conversation really is. It's not a performance where everyone is judging you. It's simply people sharing ideas, each with their own insecurities. Most of them are more focused on what they'll say next than on judging you. When you do speak, talk about what you care about, not what you think will impress. Authenticity cuts through anxiety. Even if your voice shakes the first few times, that's okay. What matters is breaking the silence that was once imposed on you. As you keep practicing, you'll find that group discussions can become empowering and even fun. You'll start feeling included, not just by others, but by yourself. You're no longer just watching from the sidelines. Each time you do this, you send a healing message to that younger part of you. See, we can do this. People do want to hear us. We've now journeyed through all 8 signs. You might see 1, 2, or maybe many of these in yourself. That's a lot to take in, and you might be wondering, what do I do with this awareness now? Let's talk about that as we wrap up. Before we close, I want to leave you with hope. The fact that you're here listening this far shows you're ready for change. The part of you that felt ignored for so long is finally being heard by you. Thank you for spending this time with me and with yourself. Remember, the journey to change starts with awareness, grows through practice, and is sustained by compassion for others, and especially for yourself. You have the power to break these old patterns. Step by step, you can move from loneliness and self-doubt into a life where you connect and communicate with authenticity and confidence. Take care and keep listening, not just to others, but also to that quiet voice inside you that deserves to be heard. Let's keep moving forward together on this journey of healing and growth.